What's going on, Atlanta United family? We're back again. It's only been, 4, maybe 3 days since the last one of these. It's starting to get into that crunch time again. No more week separation for you. You get us twice a week now. I know you're super excited because you just love seeing us on your screens, wherever you're watching, on your phone, on your computer, on your massive IMAX-sized screen TV at home because you wanted to see us up close and personal. But we are here for you, and we have a packed show tonight. There's been a lot of news going around, so we might as well just jump right into it. Obviously, joining me for most of the broadcast is John Nelson. Hello, John Nelson.
What is up, V. Kelly Francis? It is a very, very busy news day on a bunch of different fronts. It's some fun stuff. It's some exciting stuff, and there's a lot to break down in a very short period of time.
There is. There really is. So why don't we just cut right to the chase? Let's go ahead and talk about a big signing. Obviously, that DP that's coming into the house, Marcelino Moreno from Lanús. Big signing. $7 million was reported. He's going to bring a lot of style, a lot of swag. I like to put that in there because makes it so much weirder when you say it now outside of like 2 years ago. But he's an exciting player, and I look forward to seeing him obviously connecting and jiving with the team when time comes. It is pertinent to remind everybody that there is quarantine that still has to happen, and then it's about coming up to speed with the exact team. So the actual day we could possibly see him on the field is looking more like October than anything else, but still exciting nonetheless.
No doubt. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed watching and catching up with him in a video sense is just the quickness that's involved and not afraid to go up against one or two defenders. Very imaginative player. It's fun to see. And, we got into the idea of the highlight reels this morning on Soccer Down Here. And, yes, that's what highlight reels are. They show you the best of stuff, and you get to see the imagination that's a part of it, too. But the quickness that's associated with Marcelino Moreno, and if you haven't seen the initial videos that have been put out by Atlanta United, there was a 20-second snippet that Marcelino Moreno came out with that was put out by Atlanta United. Humble, hardworking, looking forward to seeing where it integrates, where it all fits in, and to see. And if you haven't, I'm going to go ahead and blatantly plug the show this morning because Jason laid it all out where Marcelino Moreno's story comes from, and it's a guy that you root for, and you get to see someone like this, and you want to root for them, you want to see them shine, you want to see them succeed, and I'm looking forward to the Atlanta United fan base really wrapping themselves around Marcelino Moreno as he comes here to town.
Now, that's a good point that you have as somebody that player that you root for. It's somebody that you look forward to seeing. It's sort of that feeling that we've had with a bunch of our what I would like to call first team 17 team, with Yamil Assad, with Miggy, with Joseph, with Carlos Carmona, these players that you attach yourselves to and you root for. But it is really interesting that we talk about this as a player that you want to get behind. We obviously have that understanding and that aspect for every player that comes to the team. But in what ways do you think that Moreno can blend well with the team that we have currently? I mean, he is a fast player in transition, so it should be really exciting to see when he comes to the pitch and combines. But as far as the team that we currently have working, it's very young. Do we see him combining with those younger players and then producing maximum speed, or how do you see that working out?
Well, I mean, this was something that Jason brought up this morning, is that there's fast and then there's quick. And I think that with Moreno, and Jason said this best, it's like you're looking at the quickness of a Marcelino Moreno to get that first step, to get things moving when he's on the dribble, to sit there and put defenders on their heels. And then when you get those societies that we like to talk about integrated together, I think that that first step forces defenders to back off. I mean, think of it like this in the American football sense, and this is how I was kind of picturing it in my head. Where if you've got that talented receiver who's out there past the hash mark, your X receiver or your Z receiver, wide left or wide right, the respect that's given to those big name receivers that we've all watched in the past, like a Julio Jones, let's say for the Atlanta Falcons, it is a very rare instance where Julio's in his prime, where you're going to see a cornerback line up straight up man-to-man against a Julio Jones, because Julio can sit there and he can take that step, he can sit there and he can work his way into a spin move, whatever, work his way to the outside, and he's gone. And that's where the quickness, I think, that I'm envisioning with Marcelino Moreno, it's the respect that he's going to garner because of that quickness. It's not going to be someone who's going to be marking on him, and then that way what you can sit there and picture is that first step he's gone, then the defenders have to back off. That creates some space, that creates opportunities, it creates those passing ideas that you can have with all of those relationships. So that's what I'm envisioning with Marcelino Moreno, is think of him as someone who's got that quick first step that can cause space, that can cause you to do things offensively.
Looking forward to him, obviously, when he is able to join the pitch. Like we said, there's going to be a bit of a quarantine period, and then obviously blending with the team. Now, coming up, some other big announcements. I feel like it's needed.
Yeah.
We're going to have more games, which is, I'm sure, is a plus to anybody that is waiting to see how the rest of the season fills out. But obviously, the rest of the schedule so far has been released. And that is looking currently like on October 3rd, we play at DC United at 7 p.m. We also then play on October 7th, Orlando City SC. And that is going to be here, but without fans. And then on October 10th, we play the New York Red Bulls, again here without fans. And then we get to play good old Inter Miami CF again.
Yes.
Which, of course, totally looking forward to that one, because at that point, Higuain is ready to go. So we should see how we match up with Higuain. October 18th, we play Toronto FC in Hartford, Connecticut. And then on October 24th, this is actually a big day. This is us playing DC United, and this is actually with limited capacity attendance. So fans will be able to be in the stands. I know everybody's sort of waiting for that. I'd be interested to see how they're going to do it. I just want to make sure safety is an utmost importance. I know that they are taking safety into huge precaution, so kind of interested in how they space out fans and how much that limited capacity is. Did it say how many people would be allowed in the stands? Because I didn't see that at all.
All I have seen are the two magic words, limited capacity, so far.
Okay. And then continuing, obviously, October 28th, we play at Orlando City, which should be a very interesting, lively game. On November 1st, FC Cincinnati. Again, that's a limited capacity game. So far we have two games that have limited capacity, which should be interesting. And then on November 8th, we play at Columbus Crew at 3:30 p.m. Obviously, that is a packed schedule coming up. That's some more dates to look forward to. Obviously, as this team gels, should be interesting to see how we face up against some of those teams. I'm particularly looking forward to seeing how we face up against the New York Red Bulls, because they also have been suffering a little bit. So it will be interesting what that matchup could be. Nonetheless, really excited about this. What are your thoughts about the schedule coming up, and what are your thoughts about the limited capacity seating?
Once again, I know that the folks at Mercedes-Benz, they're going to look at all the protocols and try to figure out what's best for fans and the best experience that you can have when it comes to limited capacities. For me, I look at the schedule, and for me, it's favorable that you can. Once again, you mentioned everybody getting together and getting healthy and being full song. I think that you look at a DC United team that is still trying to figure itself out. That to me, even if it's in DC, I think that that's favorable. Orlando City, we know that one's going to be tough. You'd mentioned the game with New York Red Bulls at Inter Miami. I still think that. That Inter Miami can be had defensively at points. It's just a matter of taking those chances and finishing them. Toronto FC, this one to me is a bit of a wild card, because Toronto, this one's going to be in Hartford, Connecticut at Rentschler Field. Mm-hmm. So how will the Canadian teams on the whole respond to being in the States, period? Toronto, in Hartford, is it going to be a long adjustment period for them? Or do you get the grind of being away from home, kind of like what we saw with MLS's back with teams? Then you've got the DC United game on the 24th of October. Once again, I still think that this is a favorable matchup. At Orlando, you mentioned that one, November 1st with FC Cincinnati. I think that one's favorable as well. And then Decision Day, you've got the matchup in Columbus against Columbus Crew. That's a 3:30 start for Atlanta United in Columbus. So I think that Atlanta United can make some hay here. Yes, I know right now at 3-7-2, 11 points. But I think that once again, you look at Cincinnati, you look at the two matchups with DC, you look at Toronto, who's away from home, you look at Red Bulls, and I think that there can be some hay that can be made here with this, the run-in here with the schedule.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And by this time, obviously as days work out and whenever Moreno actually comes into the States and obviously goes to quarantine, I think we are looking at a hopefully favorable lineup. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are delaying us right now to having a great lineup. Injuries also included in this, but it is some teams that have been suffering a bit. 2020 is the year of team struggles and strife. So everyone right now is having a really difficult year. And it should be really interesting to see how these lineups happen. Obviously, Orlando City has been one of the better teams this year with the way that they gelled, obviously, with the new coach, and it's been running very smoothly on some ends. And then you also have a group like Columbus Crew, who also gelled really well and have consistently played to a high standard. So it is very interesting to see how the rest of this lineup the rest of the season will go with the teams that we have here on the schedule. But otherwise, it's exciting. It's some matchups that I think favor Atlanta United. It's some that it's way too soon to tell. And then again, that DC United game on the 24th and that SC Cincinnati game on November 1st. Exciting to see what limited capacity could look like, and how home field advantage might help the boys. I mean, I feel like as great as artificial sound is, and they've done a fantastic job, obviously, listening to the games, but there's a difference when you have fans in the stands screaming at the top of their lungs, rooting you on. I mean, it's a complete motivation factor.
Well, no, and I think that the players miss that, and especially with Atlanta United when Atlanta United's down a goal, and you need that extra boost of energy. What we've seen in all of the seasons, whether it's at Grant Field or whether it's at Mercedes-Benz, the team is down. What's the first thing that happens? And you're in that supporter section there in the end zone, Kelly. What's one of the first things that happens when the other team scores a goal? Atlanta United is down. What's the first thing you guys do? You guys get absolutely louder than loud, and you take it up a notch yourselves to give the team that added push, to give them that added boost of energy, to have them feel that you're right there with them. And I know that that's a void for all of the teams right now, regardless of sport and what we're talking about. But not having that raw energy right there with you as a part of that push, I know it's a big void this season, and it has been for a lot of different places. But looking forward to seeing how it translates, whatever limited capacity is. Mm-hmm. But I think having that energy in those last two matches, I think it'll serve Atlanta United well, and I think that it's something to look forward to from the fans to get back in the building, so you can be that, you can be that 12th man. You can be what it's going to take for Atlanta United to get that push, especially later in the season for those last two dates as you're pushing towards staying north of the playoff bar.
Absolutely. And obviously there's a lot of things going on right now for Atlanta United, a lot of transition moves, a lot of roster moves. One of the biggest moves, obviously, this year has been the move of Frank DeBoer as head coach after that MLS is Back playoff. But there's some big news coming out, technically breaking news, but it has been reported, and I have it here by Telesport Voetbal from the Netherlands. They are saying Frank DeBoer is the new coach of the Dutch national team. What are our thoughts about that? Because that now means Atlanta United's past two coaches, Frank DeBoer, Tata Martino, have now moved on to huge international jobs. What does that say about the caliber?
There's your horn right there.
What does that now say about the weight of that being a coach for Atlanta United can give you as a coach?
Well, but I mean, I look at it as in the Frank DeBoer sense, I'm looking forward to it. I want to see him. And for him, it's a chance to go home. It's a chance to represent his country. And it's for the Euros in 2021. It's for the World Cup in 2022. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Frankly, pardon the pun, I'm intentional. I want to see him succeed. And I want to see him do well at home. He'll be presented, and this is according to the Telegraph. They'll present the new boss either this week or early next week. There were 3 candidates for the job: Frank Rijkaard, Peter Bosz, Frank DeBoer. And DeBoer was the only one willing to take the job at the moment. And this is all from the Telegraph, so this is where this is coming from. He won't be allowed to bring his own technical staff. He will continue with the current assistant coaches. But for me, like I said, I think that it's just a chance for Frank to go home, to represent his country, and to build things in a way that he would like to build them in his home environment. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. I hope he succeeds. I hope he does really, really well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. He left on neutral terms here, but obviously there's still a little bit of a, I don't know, as a gut punch for Atlanta United when you have a coach leave on not the best of terms. Obviously, Tata Martino was a little bit higher up of a leave because he's leaving for a wonderful position, and that was in the interim and the transition. But obviously, when a coach leaves and it's not one clear direction, one or the other, it seems a little down-putting. But for Atlanta United fans and for Atlanta United as a club, this is a huge win to have a former coach leave Atlanta United and get the ability to coach in this huge position for the Dutch national team. I think it's absolutely a fantastic thing. I think that also is a great. I'm losing my word right now. When you go out and recruiting, thank you.
Yeah, recruiting.
It's a great recruiting tool for anybody that you look at as a coach to say, hey, the last 2 guys that were coaches here got a lot of exposure, and they went on to coach, national teams. And I think in the end, no matter how people feel about Frank DeBoer, whether great, joyous, upset, still, running that awful hashtag. But I think it's something to be noted that, in the end, it works out favorable for every party. Atlanta United got a coach that's now another coach that's coaching a national team, and he's getting the job that sort of he kind of wants, which is this national team job, to ability to represent his country and the ability to be a leader over there. So it's really exciting. Now let's get back to actually Atlanta United today, in their lineup, them as a whole within the organization. News also came out today that Cubo Torres has suffered a knee sprain, and they are saying that it's likely he's going to miss a very large portion of the season, which now means that the striker that we brought in as a substitute for Joseph Martinez is unavailable. How do you see that affecting the team? I mean, obviously we saw John start the last game, and in my opinion, I thought John did really well. I mean, he was very dangerous. He held possession well. He used his body for good. But he was very physical, and I think that that's something that we started to see out of John, and where he's dropped back and he's used his physical presence and just his actual size to help move the ball and to block where it was needed. So it's very interesting to see if Kubo's injury causes a huge is a relative term, but it's obviously going to be detrimental to the club because it's a replacement striker. But in some ways, John's still there.
Right. And I think that, to your point, going, as we go back and think about the matchup against Inter Miami, Adam John gave you 60 minutes, and you got to see that physical presence that we've become accustomed to with John this season. But you did also see him backtrack, become engaged defensively. And so, he busted it for 60 minutes, put 2 shots. Had 2 shots, 1 shot on net. And I think that
this also, let's not forget that.
He
had the hockey assist to Bello, and
yes,
had the assist to Gallagher. So,
yes. And I know that as we get into Inter Miami, we'll talk about, as we go back and look at Inter Miami, we'll talk about that as well. But I think that right now it's Adam John, and then trying to figure out how to get the ball into him in the six, in the area, and how does he integrate? And I think that's since he's the guy right now, that's what you're trying to figure out on the fly here. When it comes to Cubo Torres, it stinks because you brought him in with a lot of promise and enthusiasm from both parties, and you got to see him, the header that Luis Robles made the tremendous save on. And I give Robles all the credit in the world. It was a hell of a save. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that you're looking at for Cubo Torres. And you kind of started to see that rhythm with Cubo Torres. It's like, okay, he's getting comfortable up there. He's putting shots on net. He just hasn't put one in the back of the net. But it stinks that this injury is going to keep him out for most of the rest of the regular season, just as it seemed like he was getting into that rhythm up top. So now, obviously, the questions are: what is it going to look like? What is it going to look like up top? Not just this go around with Dallas, but down the line. Because once again, you're looking at a quick succession of matches and things like that. So how does it look up top is one of the big questions. But I was looking forward to seeing Cubo Torres continue to grow and evolve and be comfortable up top. I was looking forward to seeing Jürgen Damm continue to grow and evolve. But the hamstring injury obviously is going to hold him back a little while. So, yeah, we mentioned 2020 being a cruel beast, and so it's a combination of injuries and then more injuries and then everything else that's been attached. So, yeah, this has been a year that has stunk on a bunch of different fronts.
Yeah, it's been a year, and I think
that's the way to phrase it. Definitely, it's been a year. You're not wrong.
It technically hasn't been a year yet.
No.
It will be a year.
It's been a year, and it wasn't even a year when it was 6 months into a year.
Exactly. And despite our urgings to come over this hump worldwide on a lot of things, we've got to stick with this, obviously. And there's no insight in view, because we're not sure how things are going to work out, obviously, with COVID. There's supposed to be a surge coming in the winter. So it will be really interesting. And hopefully when we can get attendees back in the stands, that will be a plus. When we can get some of these injuries back onto the roster, that will be a plus. Obviously, Damm was somebody that I was really liking when I saw him. The speed, the quickness, the intuitiveness, and the creativity was something that was very enthralling. Cubo Torres was a hard worker. Obviously, he wants to prove to the Atlanta United fan base that he was a good call and a good replacement, and obviously he gets sidelined and delayed a little bit. But I think as a team and as a whole, it's a collective picking up off the ground and then walking and continuing to march forward. And I think the team is struggling, yes. But I do think that the entire team has Atlanta United on their minds. They have Atlanta on their minds. They want to be the best they can be for the city. And I think that despite what their short-handed, or not short-handed, but despite their I am losing.
No, I mean, it is shorthanded because of the injuries that they've had. You were right in that. I mean, it is shorthanded because, you're dealing with injuries and then you're dealing with schedule compression and trying to figure out what your lineup's going to look like. And then you can only go in certain directions because if Jürgen Damm's injured, then okay, that means how do we address things on the right-hand side? If a player ends up accumulating 5 yellows, then you miss a player. Then how do you swap that out in schedule compression? And you're trying to play. It's almost like trying to play 3D chess. Like if you're a fan of Star Trek, it's like playing Vulcan chess, and you're trying to navigate each and every single level of what's going on, because you have to think about the game that's in front of you. You have to think about the games that are down the line, because a lot of times you played 3 matches in 7, 8, or 9 days. And it's like, okay, so if a player X can only, if I want player X in game 2 and game 3, I have to manage his minutes here in game 1. And so there's a whole lot of moving parts here. And I think that you have to give Stephen Glass and the staff definitely the sports science staff a whole lot of credit for negotiating. It's like, okay, how many minutes can I have here so I can have this player further down the line? And so there are a lot of different things that you have to juggle here to make sure that you can put the best team out there that you can. And I know that you want to get into Inter Miami because we haven't had the chance to talk about the Inter Miami match a little bit before we get into talking about the FC Dallas match. But yeah, I mean, you're dealing with a bunch of moving parts here, and I think that the coaching staff should get a whole lot of credit for trying to navigate all of this as best they can with the injuries and the cards and all of these other factors that you have to juggle during this season.
I would absolutely agree. I'm still reeled on the fact that you used a Star Wars reference.
Star Trek.
Sorry.
Star Trek reference.
That's just like so remind us. But yes, no, it's Star Trek, Vulcan, 3D chess. Not something that I thought we would be discussing. But, here we are. Thank you, John. As always, the references. Let's get into Inter Miami. Obviously, we lost 2-1 to Inter Miami. It was a fast-paced game. Inter Miami had a lot of chances. But again, Atlanta United also had their chances as well. One of the things I will say, and this is one of the things that I'm sure we'll talk about tactically when Jason comes on, is that early goal that we seem to not be able to resist or stop when it comes to the play of game. And it just feels like Atlanta United as a whole have an issue with switching on at the beginning of games, because this is now this is where I need Mike Conti with the stats, but I'm pretty sure this is the third goal we've conceded early in a match, and it's almost that point of time where it just feels like it's inevitable, and that's not something you ever want for a player when they're starting a match, to think it may or may not be inevitable, or we may or may not be scored on in the first 5 minutes of this match. It's something you never want to think about. So in some ways, that feels like a little bit of a detriment to the team. This mental capacity to think, hey, we might possibly, concede a goal within the first 5 minutes, and then we're trailing for the rest of the game. And that's not something you ever want. So obviously that first goal was a great goal. It was in the run of play. It was just pressure. But it almost felt like the second man, which was the guy who came running into the box that was, in my opinion, supposed to be marked by Remedi, just sort of ended up being a little bit open. And so, again, we concede within the first 5 minutes. But what is also important, and John, I'll let you lead off here, was our ability to answer that.
Yeah. No doubt. That was what I was going to mention, as you were discussing Juan Agudelo scoring in the second. Then 3 minutes later, you have John Gallagher score, and the ball from George Bello to Gallagher in the area was absolutely top notch. And then Jeff Larentowicz with the hockey assist there in the 5th minute. But
that was John. It was John that did the hockey assist, I believe.
Well, and then what you end up with is John Gallagher getting the goal that he gets. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was man of the match. I mean, John Gallagher, man of the match, that was an easy decision, because what you saw with Gallagher was all of the effort, all of the speed, and just literally it was as pedal down as you possibly could get for 77 minutes from John Gallagher. And so, as you mentioned, Juan Agudelo scoring in the 2nd minute, for me, I was going to mention just as quickly, you saw a response from Atlanta United. And yep. To me, that was just as important. But once again, we turn this into another complex compound sentence. You add the but in there and the comma. 6 minutes later, you end up with Brek Shea scoring, with Pizarro and Lewis Morgan getting the assists on that. And so once again, you're having to fight from a negative. You're trying to fight uphill here. You're having to chase the game, and you chased it the first time. You scored 3 minutes later, but then you have to chase it a second time in a frantic first 15 to 20 minutes. You're having to chase a game twice, and then it turns into it just turns into having to chase something again, which that's Atlanta United fans have seen, chasing of a match. And so that's just really, it's something that I know that fans have seen a lot of, but I will go back to the fight in the 5th minute to get John Gallagher on the board and get Atlanta United on the board is something that folks can pay attention to from this match against Inter Miami, where you come up with the equalizer. Yes, I know you gave up the 2-1 goal 6 minutes later, but I'll go back to that 5th minute goal by John Gallagher as something to look forward to.
Absolutely. And I would agree with you on something to look forward to. Gallagher was a shining spot of that game. Obviously, like you said, man of the match. I thought him combining with Bello worked really well. They seemed to understand each other really well, which just, again, proves that point that, when you've got players that combine well and understand each other, there's going to be some bit of sparks and some bit of creativity and ingenuity that you will get from that. We do have a team that most of them have played together, yes, but there's a lot of new moving parts in that team. It's a lot of trying to understand and trying to build chemistry as well with a team that's very young. And again, some of them are very fresh and very new. But again, like you said, Gallagher, absolutely incredible during the game. Atlanta United rewarded or have been semi-rewarded with a goal being disallowed right before the half, which I'm sure boosted a little bit of confidence going into the locker room, because I could only imagine the gut punch that would have been going into the locker room at 3-1 at halftime with that goal being disallowed for offsides. But again, it seems to be that Atlanta United have some weaknesses, right? So they have some weaknesses with being switched off, which is something that we have seen during the games and mini games. We've seen that ability to not be fully focused when the game starts. But there's also issues that we've seen coming up against set pieces. This is something that we have seen consistently since the beginning of this season, that set pieces are a weakness for us, which is somewhat strange since last season we were one of the best teams on defending set pieces. So that sort of brings this question of what was the difference? I mean, was it just the coaching and the tactics from Frank de Boer that allowed this team to better defend set pieces, or is it just the shifting of the people on the back line and who is involved in set pieces, or is it just a lack of communication between players that allows these non-run of play goals to happen?
Well, I think that I'll give you choice D, all of the above for some of it. But also, you're talking about fatigue. You're talking about schedule compression. And I know that this seems to be an overarching theme here. But when you have all of these games in a very short period of time, and you have to be on, and I mean underlined, exclamated, italicized, boldface, 30 font size Arial, Times New Roman font here. You've got to be on for the entirety that you're out there. And that mental fatigue can creep in sometimes. And I would say that that's as much of a factor as well, because if you're playing consistently and you're playing quick, you're playing a bunch of games in a very short period of time, I think that the mental aspect of it too can contribute to it. Yes, they're late in reacting. That's physical. It's physical to me, and it would also be mental. It's both of those elements that are attached to something like that, where you're late in reacting. So that's mental, and it could also have a physical component too. But I think that you're right on some of it. But I would just add the mental component as well, where when you're playing a lot of games in a very short period of time and you're having to react to every single thing, those are the times that you can't, and at times that it turns out being costly for Atlanta United.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's that needing to be switched on, and that's just sort of where we've switched off. So very apropos, sir. But again, we did have our chances in the second half. Second half, obviously, there were no goals scored by either team in that second half, so the end result was 1 as they were leading into the first into halftime. But Torres, like you said, that Robles save was an incredible long butt gusting run and great pass, great cross in from Lennon. A lot of people didn't actually think he was going to get on the end of that ball, so it was kind of wonderful to see him be able to get a little foot on that, and then obviously come in for Torres. And again, huge save by Robles. So it cannot be missed that Atlanta United had their chances. They also had that huge strike from Gallagher that just ended up deflecting off of Rossetto. So Atlanta United created chances, and that should be known and should be stated that it wasn't just a game that was completely dominated by Inter Miami, although there were a lot of chances for that side. Atlanta United did as well create, and that was something that the entire fan base and most of the people outside of the fan base were really hoping to see again from Atlanta United. But I do think the past run of matches have shown that the creativity has stepped up a bit, and so has the attacking presence in the game. It's even though it's not necessarily always enjoyable to watch a team trailing, in some ways it is also freeing is a terrible word, but in some ways it allows creativity to be a little bit more heightened, because then you have to think outside of the box to create a goal.
Well, and one of the things that we also haven't seen with Atlanta United is they haven't quit. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's just as important. You still see the guys grinding. You still see them chasing after results and things like that. It's not where it's 3-0 and then it turns into 6-1 like we've seen in San Jose with the Earthquakes, where they just get completely blitzed. You're not seeing those kinds of results, mm-hmm. And I think that that's just as key for looking at Atlanta United, is that you're not seeing them just sit there and say, we're 60 minutes in and we're down 2-1 and we're just going to, pack it in and we'll see you next time. No, you're not seeing any of that. Right. The fact that you're still seeing fight from the guys, you're still seeing all of this effort from the guys, I think that it shows you that they're invested right now as fully as you are to try to get that result. There is no quit, and I think that that's just as important here.
I would agree with you. And then outside of that, I do think it is worth mentioning, obviously, Gallagher, man of the match. Mm-hmm. Again, George Bello.
Yep.
What a revelation. Obviously, he started getting minutes last season. He was a player that was always on our list of ones to watch. But it really feels like, because of the transition of coaches, because of, obviously, Glass's confidence in Bello, he started getting a lot of starts in really tough games, a lot of hard matchups, and he's really stepped up to the plate. He has combined well, he's defended well, he's ran his butt off, he's played almost every match. It's incredible to see a player of his age flourish and see from game to game him getting better. And that's the things that I am reminiscent of when I first started seeing Alphonso Davies play. It's that same sort of thing as the youth in a game with a tough matchup, and then seeing how well they respond to the pressure and how they grow from there. And it's only exciting for me as an Atlanta United fan and as a George Bello lover to see how much he can grow this season and to see where he will end up, because he's going places, and that's for sure. But it's just, it will be really interesting to see his progression just from this season alone, because it feels like it's been leaps and bounds.
Well, and at the same time, you look at the back four that Atlanta United has had, and you've seen the stability there with George and with Anton Walkes, who has been pressed into a situation because of the injury to Fernando Meza, and you're seeing the relationship now with Anton and Miles there as your center backs. And to me, I've loved to see that growth, and you see that relationship continue to grow. You got Franco out on the right, and so I think that the back four is solidifying itself from what we've seen. But now that Fernando Meza was back in the roster last time out, does Anton get to sit for a bit, or do you continue to ride the hot hand? Does Meza end up playing? Is he in the 11? But is he as your holding midfielder, something like that? But that, I think that's a good problem to have, because you're getting folks healthy, and for the run in here, you're wanting to have a lot of guys. You need to have as many guys healthy as possible because of all of these matches in very short periods of time. You want to make sure that you can have that back four that we know that has been there. But if somebody, if the sports science staff sits there and says, okay, somebody's hitting their max, that they need to kind of sit for a little bit, then you can have someone like a Fernando Meza come in, or you can have Anton Walkes come in off the bench or something like that. So I think that the relationship at the back, I think, is something that also you can look at as a positive going forward here.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. Obviously, we're going to transition now into what we could see against FC Dallas, that's where the good old dialing in of the godfather of soccer comes.
The great and powerful Oz.
the man behind the Iron Curtain. Good old Jason Longshore is going to be joining us to talk about FC Dallas. I'm ever so now just looking at my screen, and I'm realizing no matter how I move, my face is going to be cut off with shadow. Sorry, everyone. I'm in the middle of moving a bunch of stuff, and it's just going to be...
There you go. Right there. Don't move your head.
I'm trying not to.
No, tilt back. Tilt back.
You know what this looks like? This looks like the Queen poster, where it's all in the shadow, and it's just my face. But yeah, no.
What'd you do?
But let's go ahead and get Jason on here to talk about FC Dallas and what we could see from Atlanta United in this matchup against them.
First off, people were asking if you were broadcasting from a cave, Kelly.
It's the Kelly Cave.
It's the Kelly Cave, guys. No, my office is no longer my office. I'm sitting in like my living room, and the light's coming from one of. Like, I'm just gonna. You guys,
is it a headlight from somewhere outside that's lighting you?
The kitchen?
It's like a street light.
It is a street light. Okay, I was not that far off.
Sorry, I'm again in the middle of moving, and so there's a lot of stuff, a lot of furniture missing currently.
Okay.
So is furniture missing because someone that you didn't know took it, or is it existing in a future location?
It's existing because my mom lent it to me, and then she decided she wanted it back.
Ooh.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens. But anyway, I'm going to turn my light on. You guys start on FC Dallas.
Okay.
Franco Jara, 5 goals of the last 9 that FC Dallas has scored in the 3-game win streak that they've had. Santiago Mosquera had a hat trick on Wednesday. A lot of firepower coming in.
Yeah, Jara's got 5 goals and 8 starts. Came over from Pachuca, where he spent 6 years, scored a goal about every 2 games at Pachuca, 66 goals and 139 appearances. He's given them a spark up top, and Dallas has been a team that up until the last 6 has struggled. They've only lost 1 of the last 6, and that loss was 3-2 at Minnesota. Jara has been a big part of this since he joined the team in July. Remember, he signed that pre-contract back in January, and when the transfer window opened, he joined. Goals on either side of halftime against Kansas City and their big win on Saturday. And he's a complete forward. I mean, he can give you a little bit of everything up top, and he's created some good partnerships with the wingers. A lot of times it's Mosquera, it's Fafa Pico. He's also got a midfield behind him that is pretty solid. Now, I do want to see what the lineup looks like this time around because Michael Barrios came off the bench on the weekend. Brian Acosta is red-carded, so if Cervania keeps his spot, it's probably going to be Tanner Tessman, who's a rookie, and Thiago Santos playing behind Cervania. All 3 of those guys kind of like to sit. Tessman and Cervania will take turns going forward to play with Jara and support him. But he gives them that pivot in the attack to build everything around. And it's been a rotating cast of characters for Luchi Gonzalez, but this last run of games, he's hitting on the cast that's working out well.
And at the same time at the back, Jason, you've got 2 of the stalwarts of the franchise there, and I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about Matt Hedges and Reto Ziegler, 2 of the guys at the back that are really, really they're just parts of the fabric of FC Dallas right now.
I mean, Ziegler hasn't been there that long. Hedges has. I mean, Matt Hedges is in his 9th season in Dallas. He's got over 250 matches with them. 5 caps for the national team. He's a guy who maybe could have got a couple more appearances for the USMNT. Ziegler has had a pretty interesting career. He was at Tottenham and really lost his spot at Tottenham when a guy named Gareth Bale emerged because Ziegler was playing out on the left at that time, and he's turned into a center back now, but he's a guy who's played at Tottenham. He's played at Sampdoria. He signed for Juventus, although he didn't play there. He's played in Russia. He's played in Turkey. He's got 35 caps for Switzerland. Really good on set pieces. Great left foot, and that's something Atlanta's had a few problems with, so they're going to have to be really careful there. The opportunities are out wide against this back line. Your namesake, John Nelson, has gotten 6 starts on the left. Ryan Hollingshead will get plenty of time as well. Hollingshead is your main guy. I mean, he's a veteran with this team. He's kind of turned into a top left back in this league after playing a little bit of everywhere in his career. The right side, it's a youngster in Brian Reynolds, who's 19, who took over for Reggie Cannon. And he's got 4 starts on the year. Signed to a homegrown deal when he was 15 back in 2016. And Cannon's sale has opened up the spot for him. He's played well, but he is still kind of learning on the job. So Atlanta finding opportunities down the left is going to be something they're going to want to do quite often. And George Bello versus Brian Reynolds, 2 of the up-and-coming young outside backs in the country.
Yep. It'll be an exciting matchup for sure. And that you actually hit on a point that I do want to discuss, because obviously in this last game against SKC, FC Dallas conceded with some set pieces. So they also have some issues with set pieces themselves. So could we see this being a set piece matchup between both teams?
Atlanta doesn't want it to be that because this is a better team on set pieces than Dallas than Atlanta is. Atlanta wants to avoid set pieces at all costs right now. It's just like a mental block at this point. And it's not even just corners. I mean, it's Atlanta set pieces in the attacking end. It's throw-ins. It's everything at the moment that Atlanta is just switching off when the ball goes out of play. I mean, to the point that it's like you need a bell, you need a horn, you need something. The ball goes out of play, ring the thing so nobody stops focusing. It makes no sense, but it's turned into this mental block, and it's killing the team right now. I mean, if you take those goals out of the equation, you take the set-piece goals out of the equation, you have more points in the standings, first off. And games are not you chasing them for the whole time, and they're going to play out differently. It's a huge factor above anything else right now. And this is taking the Joseph injury out of the big picture equation. Out of anything else right now, it's the most correctable thing, and it would have the most impact if you can just stop conceding goals on set pieces.
Yeah. When you look at Atlanta United, when it comes to roster rotation, that kind of stuff, how different are you anticipating that it looks from the weekend?
Let me go get a quarter to flip, and we'll see what we come up with.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a toss-up because you just don't know where guys are physically. It's difficult. I mean, you had a week that was a normal week. You're not going to have too many of those the rest of the way. It is a little bit of, who is the sharpest and fittest, and they're going to get the run out. Assuming people are good to go, Barco comes back in, probably for Mulraney, I would assume. Mulraney was okay, but Gallagher was excellent. So if Gallagher's ready to go, he gets the start. Adam John should get the start up top, although there's always the possibility of Manuel Castro getting that opportunity. We did see him in MLS's back. It was something that was talked about. He'll get time up top because right now he's the second guy up top, so he's the second option. It's his last chance, I think, to potentially earn a deal for next year. He's on loan. That's up at the end of the season. If he wants to stay, this is a big opportunity for him. The midfield is the big question because we know we'll see Marcelino Moreno here at some point. We don't know when, but who's going to lose out in that midfield when he comes in? Because he's going to play one of the 3 midfield spots. If Barco plays as a 10, then Moreno's going to take another midfield spot. There's only going to be 1 spot left. I think Barco goes to the left when Moreno's here. Based off what we've seen, I'm more comfortable with Rossetto right now. I think he's been more effective. Heinemann has been okay, but you need more from him going forward. You need more from Rossetto going forward as well. But there's been better play from him so far. Jeff Larentowicz and Eric Remedi is the combination you like. If Remedi was just a little more responsible defensively, I think he would lock down that 6 spot, which you're going to need somebody to be that 6 going forward for this team. And if you don't find it in what you have right now, you're going to see a change there next year, in my opinion. Jeff is the most responsible defender there to make everything work. The back line is probably what we've seen with the question about Fernando Meza. Does he come back in for Anton Walkes? Does Walkes move over to a different position, or does he go to the bench after playing a whole lot of minutes? And the other question is Brooks Lennon. Does he push his way back into this lineup? He had a awful 45 in Nashville. It was one of the worst individual performances of the season, and this is after some of the best individual performances of the season from Brooks Lennon. He didn't get to start here, probably partially because of that performance in Nashville. So he came on and was okay. That was the problem against Miami, was your subs, your changes, guys came in and they were okay. You didn't get anything to really change. So did any of them do enough to get more minutes here? And that's going to be the question, along with fitness, that Stephen Glass has to sort out. I don't know if they did. I don't know if you change anything outside of Barco coming back into the team, if he's ready to go.
What is it? This is my John Gallagher question. What's it been like to see John Gallagher and his game get to where it's been in the last couple of matches that we've seen from John? It's been a great progression to see what we've gotten out of Gallagher.
Yeah, I mean, it's been coming. He's had an interesting career progression because he broke in as a forward at Notre Dame and came to the Atlanta United 2 as a forward. Scored goals, moved to a right wing spot in a 4-3-3, was still contributing in the attack. And an opening came up at right back, and he did really well there. And then he got a shot at right wing back in a 3-5-2, and he did really well there. And he kept running with that. And I think a big reason why is because there was more of an opening there. There really wasn't at that time a true reserve behind Julian Gressel at the club. So he started to get those opportunities. Aberdeen liked what they saw. They took him on loan for a year. They extended it. They kept him. He did really well. And when he gets the opportunity to come back, it was just kind of like, all right, when is he going to get his chance? He did well at the MLS's back tournament in a losing effort against Columbus. Didn't get the immediate call after that to get back into the team. But this run right now, every time he's been on the field, he's made things happen. And that's something this team is really lacking at the moment. When you start to look at some of the numbers, and look, you can kind of fool yourself with statistics at times. They don't tell you everything. They can point you in the right direction, but they don't tell you everything in a match. What jumped out to me about Gallagher is shot-creating actions, and that's creating shots for himself or for others. Per 90 minutes, he's fourth in the team. Now, that's per 90 minutes. That's not overall. So,
right.
But to be where he is as an MLS player and to be contributing in that way that quickly, it's a big deal because he also gives you the defensive side of the ball when you need it. So to have a well-rounded player like that, he's played his way into a spot where right now, and we said this about Brooks Lennon before, but he played himself out of it with the half in Nashville. Gallagher's played himself into a spot where you can't really take him off the field right now.
Yeah. It's interesting that we talk about the progression of Gallagher as far as the positions that he's played. With his history of playing as a striker, could we see him possibly slotting into that position as well?
It's possible. He'd be really different. He'd be a smaller option than Manuel Castro. I wouldn't completely rule it out, but it would be a wild card just because we didn't really see it outside of the first few games with Atlanta United 2. Because even then he moved out to the wing when other options were up top, when it was Romario Williams coming down to play with the twos or Vasquez or Josef Samuel. It was Gallagher moving over to the right side. So it's been a long time. He would give you a very different style of play because he would be, you'd be a lot of movement. He would be very mobile. He would be looking for that run in behind. You wouldn't be looking to play the little 1-2 with him and combine with him. You wouldn't be looking for as many crosses with him. But he could give you a different look. I think John's done enough to get the job on a regular basis right now. If nobody else is coming in and if you're stretched on the cap and you don't have a lot of options, you're not going to mortgage the future for the rest of this season. You're not going to do that at a position where you have Josef Martinez coming back. You're not going to go get a long-term striker. So if that's what it is, then I think you can make more things happen with John up top and with Gallagher out wide than Gallagher up top and somebody else out wide. Now, when you get Moreno, when you get Jurgen Damm back, when you have Ezequiel Barco at 100%, then maybe we're having a different conversation. But right now, I think it's John up top and Gallagher coming from a wide position.
Okay. So if we're talking about lineups that we see for tomorrow, obviously Guz is getting in between the net. That's not in question at all. Escobar, I do think Miles and Anton, just because it has, like John has said, been a hot hand. And Bello, obviously, as that left back. Sitting as a number 6, I still have Remedi there for tomorrow, just because it's another chance for him to earn that spot, as Jason said. But I had a little bit of different midfield trio. I actually had Adams as another defensive body in the midfield, because FC Dallas is really great with transition and obviously are very quick. So you need another body in the midfield that can be able to disrupt that in the actual midfield and not in our final third. And then I have Barco sitting as the number 10. I have Gallagher on the left and actually Lennon on the right with John as striker.
Yeah, see, the one thing I would do is Mo Adams, I wonder if he's kind of played himself out of consideration, because we haven't seen him since the first half against Orlando. The fact that we haven't seen him after a condensed period of time makes me wonder if he's kind of lost the trust of the staff. It'd be a little bit of a surprise if he came back in. If Jeff's not ready to go again, and I thought Jeff struggled a little bit on Saturday. It wasn't one of his better performances. If he's not ready to go, I think it's Remedi as the 6. And then it's a little bit of a role reversal. I would have Josetu drop deeper. He can play as a true 8. He can play deeper in the team, and have Hindman as that 10. Barco out wide can be a little bit easier to deal with. But it just comes down to what players you think gives you the best combination. I lean to Barco out wide because of the transition moments you talk about, Kelly, because I don't want him to have to do quite as much defending. I want my midfield to handle that, and Hindman, Josetu are going to have to read the game and step up high when they can and drop when they can. Barco out wide on the left is a little protected. Bello is going to be the one who's going to be doing the running on that side. But then you're going to be leaving Gallagher or Lennon out. So that's where you come back to, your lineup conundrum. It's not easy, and that's what you want. You want a team like that. The problem is when nobody's really standing out at the moment, it's hard to fill a team. It's hard to fill a team when everybody's standing out. But right now it's the reverse that's not fun, where you don't know who to turn to because you're looking for a spark. And outside of Gallagher and Bello, you really haven't seen it in a while.
I agree. John, what were your thoughts of the lineup going into this? And then we'll answer a few questions and then give our predictions to wrap this up.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest circle was Jeff and Fernando Meza, and those were my two questions. Is like, do you ride with the back four that you have, or does Fernando Meza hop back into the starting lineup to give somebody a rest? Is that individual Jeff? So those were my two big questions. I had Barco on the left, Gallagher on the right, John up top, and I was looking at the Josetu Hindman part of the midfield as well.
Okay. All right, and then let's go ahead and Jason, are there any questions in the Titch that the Titch?
That's not even a word. What?
It is now.
What? I don't even know what that is.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Are there any questions in the Twitch that we should get to that you've seen that you wanted to highlight?
Everybody's having a good time. There are drinks being spit out. Gustavo's hanging out from Buenos Aires.
Hola, Gustavo.
Yes. Let's see what else we got. Lots of emotes being flashed in the Twitch pitch. John has no idea what that is. Yeah, we got some new emotes. We got a red card emote in there now.
Ooh. What was the red card for?
There's been some red cards handed out a few times. There's been some comments made that needed a red card. VAR intervened and things got out of hand. So, no, Twitch pitch. If you guys have any questions, fire them at us. What do we have on Twitter right now?
On Twitter, we have a lot of discussions about the scarf, which is what I want to get into. And 4-card basically saying he's playing up to our opponents, and in all caps 4 times over he says, I believe that we will win with the appropriate gift attached. Nice. So that's where we are with that. Now, there's a lot of love on the Twitter timeline for Marcelino Moreno.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. We've had a lot of love from Lanús fans, a lot of love from Atletico Palmira fans today. The scarf that we've done, thanks for all the initial response. We've been doing pretty well with it today. We've still got quite a few to move through because we want to make a large donation to the soccer school at Atletico Palmira. Quick story, if you want the full thing, go back and listen to this morning's show. I went on a whole lot longer than I thought I would. It's an amazing journey for me to go back and study Moreno's career. I mean, this is a guy who was 15 hours away from Buenos Aires and was a little bit of a late bloomer coming up at 17 to join Lanús because he was playing in Mendoza. I mean, he was playing at a tiny club that plays in a regional league at Atletico Palmira. He'd had an opportunity when he was 11 to go to Boca on trial, and it fell through after a change in leadership at Boca. He didn't get the invite to go to Buenos Aires and join Boca Juniors. And, he's a kid who, learned how to play in his grandfather's soccer school and got the opportunity to join Palmira and didn't have the money to pay for the registration fee to join Palmira. And one of the teammates' dads got it covered for him. And, he played in the lot. In the street, and cars would come by and he'd have to stop. It was like that kind of story for him. And he goes to Lanús, and it was hard at first. He got loaned out to Talleres, came back, played with the U20s, got to the Copa Libertadores in the U20 category, lost in a match to Sao Paulo, but he was one of the leaders of the team. Took him a little while to break through into the first team. He started getting minutes. First alongside Miguel Almiron when he was playing out wide. Then when Almiron came to Atlanta, he got the opportunity to move inside centrally. Got the right manager, kind of unlocked everything for him. Luis Zelbadia is the manager there now, and he basically told him to go play his game. Like, he wanted him to play in that central role and play his game and run at defenders and open the game up. They call him a destabilizing force. And when you have somebody who is that good on the ball and that quick, defenses can fall apart trying to deal with it. It's going to create more space for everybody else. So, he's a story of perseverance. He's the type of player that I think Atlanta fans will love. He's a real humble guy, hard-working guy. He's a hard worker on both sides of the ball. And I just love that Atletico Palmira, the first club he was at out in Mendoza, named their soccer school for 4 to 8-year-olds after him, after he made it big. And he's been back to see them, and he's donated things to them, and he's told the kids, that you guys can make it too, because not a lot of kids from there make it big in Buenos Aires. He did. So when I started researching him to learn more about him and watching games and started to find this thread and go deeper into it, I was thinking about, trying to do something first to welcome him, because I think it's important, he's not going to be able to see the banners from you guys in the stadium day one. He's not going to be able to hear you guys day one. So I wanted to do something to welcome him. Scarf was an easy thing. And then it's like, well, let's do something for the school that bears his name, and let's do something to help the next Marcelino Morenos. So, Atletico Palmira has reached out. We're going to get money to them with this scarf sale. All the proceeds from the scarf are going to Atletico Palmira and their soccer school. And this is a big deal for that club. They're going to make 5 figures off of the transfer because of the way things go with clubs who develop players, and they get a share of transfers like this. And that's massive, and we're going to contribute a little bit to it. We're going to help out a little bit more with it, and I'm happy that you guys have jumped on board and jumped on with the story and are spreading the word. And please continue to do so, because we're going to sell out of these scarves, and if there's enough interest, we'd love to get more, but we're going to sell out of what we have, and we're going to make a good donation to Atletico Palmira in Marcelino's name.
That's awesome. Really, really look forward to being able to see him walk around with that scarf around his neck, and obviously those proceeds going to the school. Where can they find the scarf? Where can they buy the scarf?
Go to our Twitter account. You can go to any of our social media accounts, but Twitter and Facebook are the quickest to send us a message. It's PayPal is how you'll pay. You'll send it to our email address, our Soccer Down Here email address, and we'll get you taken care of. They are being produced now, so we should get them fairly quick. Diehard, who is our normal provider on scarves, has been awesome on this. I sent the idea middle of last week when it looked like the deal was done and said, hey, we're still waiting on confirmation here, but can we work up a couple of designs and figure this out? And I sent it kind of not late at night, but like around 9 or so. And our contact over there, Gonzalo.
Yeah, he is a madman.
He sent me back designs in 2 hours. He was like, I love the story. I love this idea. We want to help. We're going to give you guys a discount on the scarf so we can donate more money to the school. So it was very, very cool. And they've been great with us. So tweet at us or send us a direct message on Facebook. And we'll get you sorted out.
Awesome. So glad that you guys are doing that. Such a great idea. I think it'll be huge. Obviously, if you can donate, grab a scarf, do all of that. As you said, do that on the socials, and we're getting that to a minute. Let's go ahead and give our predictions, guys. Or do we want to do predictions? I mean, I think it's still fun to do them, but I actually see it being a tie. I do think Atlanta United can hold out. I don't know necessarily if it's going to be a clean sheet, but I'm actually looking at a 1-1 game for tomorrow against FC Dallas. But I do see our boys being able to get a point out of the match tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing them come home with a point. What do you guys think?
John, what you think?
I'll go 2-1. The Velvet Driving Slipper Lock of the Week. I'll break the glass on that one. And Atlanta for juice boxes right now. Atlanta is a plus 130. FC Dallas is a plus 200, courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. I think that Ziegler gets one off a set piece, probably off a corner. I think that Barco gets one. I think Gallagher gets another. I think it's 2-1.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Atlanta's got to be careful. Dallas is a good team in transition. They are – it's weird. I mean, they've been so good lately this season. They have not been as good as they have been lately. Which Dallas shows up is going to be the question, because this is short rest for them. Are they going to be up for this game? Peter Vermes talked about their time-wasting efforts in Kansas City with a lot of words and
Yes.
probably a lot of colorful words for Luchi Gonzalez after the game. I did not hear that part of it. That's going to be something that'll happen. If Dallas gets a lead, they will be very cynical, and they'll do all the things they need to do. Atlanta has to avoid that. I think I really do like the 1-1 draw kind of feel to this. I think that's what this can go. I think in some ways Atlanta and Dallas can cancel each other out. Atlanta has to play better. They have to play much, much better. They have to get out of the first half without conceding a goal. I mean, that's been the challenge. The numbers are not lying to you. When you look at goals conceded, Atlanta's conceded 17 all season. 5 in the first 15 minutes, 4 in the next 15 minutes, 4 in the next 15 minutes, 13 of 17 in the first half. If you concede in the first half, you're not winning. I think they get out of that. I think they do find a goal, and I think Dallas finds an equalizer, and it's a 1-1.
I agree. So it should be an overall fun game to watch. Hopefully we see the boys coming out with that velvet slipper like John wants.
Whatever it takes to get 3 points, I do not care at this point. You want to build, you want to play good soccer, but however you get a win, if it is 1-0 and the goal goes in off of the back of Miles Robinson's head, I do not care.
Mm-hmm.
Either. It doesn't have to be pretty. It can be ugly. I just want 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Point. I just want a point. Point / with a pot with the yep. Anywho, let's go ahead and say the socials. Obviously, again, guys, the social for at Soccer Down Here will have that scarf, so you guys can buy that scarf and donate to the school. I am at the Kelly Francis. If you want to hear all of my hot takes on Twitter, they are my own opinion. I do not support the opinion of others, and I'm sure others do not support the opinion of me. So we will go into OSG Nelson for the cute sports guy is
Yes.
what the handle is.
Yeah, that when the boss says that's what you are, that's what your handle is.
Okay. And obviously the godfather of soccer at Longshoot.
The great and powerful Oz.
Yes.
Aww.
Jason, before we do go, where can people hear the countdown to kickoff, all that good stuff?
Yeah, we got lots of stuff tomorrow. So my day tomorrow, we start with soccer down here at 9 o'clock.
Yep.
We have stoppage time at 2 o'clock, facebook.com/929thegame. We'll be on the Atlanta United social media channels with the AT&T countdown to kickoff around 6 o'clock, and we'll have the Atlanta United lineup for you there. And then at 6:30, the Five Stripes countdown on 92.9 The Game and the radio.com app. And then kickoff will be just after 7 o'clock. It's a local broadcast, so kickoff will be somewhere between 7:06 and 7:08. We'll have the full-time report for an hour afterwards, and you can listen to it at the usual spots, radio and radio.com.
Yeah. I will say, for anybody that hasn't listened to the full-time report with Jason and Mike, it is something that I tune into after the game is finished, so Jason can quell me of all of my nervous anxieties, hopefully.
And then we have then we have Overreaction Thursday.
Yeah, and then we got Overreaction.
And then the run-up on Friday.
Yeah, and the run-up on Friday.
Or on Saturday, sorry.
Or on Saturday.
This time it's Saturday.
Yes. The run-up is on Saturday. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us. Like they said, we will actually be back on Saturday at 7 p.m. Please join us. We would love to recap FC Dallas, any more updated news for you guys, and then preview the next match. Thank you guys so much for joining. We look forward to talking to you soon.